I'm here today with Dr. Claire Melvin. Claire is a lecturer at the University of East Anglia. Claire, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in autistic people?
Yep, sure. Hi, Jill. So as Jill said, I work at the University of East Anglia and I teach applied psychology. So that is, we move beyond sort of the theory and we look at how it impacts people in their everyday lives and how we can actually use what we know. And I have spent most of my time working with autistic people who often have complex needs or mental health problems, many of them detained under the Mental Health Act, and they might have come into contact with the criminal justice system. So I've spent a number of years working in the private sector and the NHS, supporting those who have such complex needs and trying to ensure that they get fair treatment, fair trials, and the best care and support that's available to them.
Thank you, Claire. So this week we're moving on to think about legislation, social inclusion and employment. And I wondered if you could say a little bit about what this week's going to be like.
Yeah, certainly. So this week, some of the information that we're going to look at will be predominantly in the UK and sort of systems that are similarly based around the UK. And we'll look at legislation, social policy, and sort of how these translate into practices on the ground. So when we're talking about that, we talk of laws which say that things must happen, and social policy is the way that governments and countries ensure that those things do happen. So it's making sure that people have access to health services and those kinds of things. So we're going to talk about some autism-specific legislation and policy, but we're also going to talk about some of the other policies that autistic people may come under if they have mental health problems, come into contact with the criminal justice system, those kinds of things. We're going to talk about it from those who come into the contact with the criminal justice system as perpetrators or offenders, and those as victims as well. Social policy is also not just about the criminal justice system, even though that's my area of interest, and it applies to things like healthcare, employment, and education as well. So we're going to look at what's been done recently in those areas, to particularly thinking about autistic employees and autism in the workplace. So that's what you're going to cover this week.
Thank you, Claire. So most of what you're talking about will be UK-based legislation, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it will be based in the UK.
So obviously we have learners who are from wider than just the UK. What can they contribute, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's I'm very interested in how it translates globally as well. So the UK, Canada, and the Netherlands, I want to say, but some of the Western European countries, we have the most developed autism-specific legislation and policy, and so other countries are slightly newer, or they're not quite as strongly set up yet. So I think it's really interesting for those that are established to hear what's going on in other countries as well, and other cultures. So although this is predominantly Western based, because that's what we have what we have available at the minute, definitely other countries tell us what's going on, because we can definitely improve what we're doing, and there's things that can be shared and taken backwards and forwards. So absolutely, one of the discussion tasks this week actually is to think about what your country does and what your government does, and so we want the global perspective of it. So please contribute as much as you can.
Thank you very much, Claire.